So the bed and chip pan are off the lathe. And underneath there we find what can only be described as 70 years of filth. And we got to clean that up if we ever want to put this thing back together, which of course we do. So let's get after it. Welcome back to Magic City Tool. Alright, so what we're going to start with is a razor blade. We're going to try to get rid of some of this. It's rust, it's dried old grease, old oil, probably rat pee too again. But anyway, the razor blade is really good at kind of beginning to get the heaviest stuff off. And then I'm coming in here with Coleman Camp Fuel white gas. It'll dissolve just about any old grease and oil that is on a machine, but it also dries very quickly. You can see this closest to us here is already dried, so I'm going to come back with kerosene. Kerosene will wet it enough where I can wipe it off, and you can see it does a pretty good job cutting through all of that. And there you see, after I'd gone through a couple more rounds, it was pretty clean. And now we're trying to get the remnants of the belts. The previous owner had put some belts that were not A-section belts in here, and they had turned sideways and like welded themselves into this pulley essentially. And so I'm scraping out as much of that old rubber as I can, and then I'm going to use this brass brush on a drill to just turn the pulley. And it was throwing a bunch of stuff at me, so I learned real quick to put the vacuum there beside it. And there's my wife with a clever comment. What we're doing is cleaning out around the motor, hitting it with that brass brush down there. I want to get the motor out of the base, but there's a lot of stuff in the way. One of the things that's in the way is these old electronics, and this panel right here is probably 70 to 80 pounds, and it's no longer in use. Now, one thing I am concerned about is removing that much weight from the base. These lathes tend to be a little bit top heavy, so I'm trying to think of a way to kind of make that either a pull-out drawer or have a rack where I can store extra chucks and things like that that will also serve as kind of ballast, replacing that weight that I took out from those unused old electronics. So these are just two steel rails that held that piece, and they're, I mean, inch thick and 2.5 inches wide steel, heavy duty. On these old machines, well, on pretty much everything nasty gathers at the bottom. So there was a good 1/8 inch thick layer of old grease and grime down here, and I find that you don't want to just go in with a degreaser right away because you just end up pushing it around in piles. So a scraper is a much better tool to start with. So now we're going to get in here and try to get this pulley off, but I came to learn through talking to several people who have done these lathes that this is one of the more difficult pulleys to remove in the whole system. These two pulleys here, and there are people that have wrecked these pulleys trying to get them off because and then I know one guy I talked to on Practical Machinist said that his pulley, the key had either sheared off or it had worn the keyway out so bad that he just kind of wrecked the whole thing getting it apart. So after I try a little bit to get the pulleys off, I'm going to end up just pulling this whole bracket off in one piece, and I think that was the better thing to do. At least I can get it on the bench and attempt to take them off later to get to those bearings. We're just kind of working our way through it here, and I'm still looking to maybe try to take pieces of it off, because this whole chunk right here and the bracket, not only is it kind of awkward and heavy, but it flops around. Like once you'll see here when I start pulling things off, it just kind of flops all over the place. And that's kind of because it's the mechanism by which you tension the belts. Here you can see as I undo that nut, you see it lowering right there, and so that's how you tension those belts. These Knipex pliers are great. If you guys don't have any, you should get some. They've got no teeth on them, so you can use them and they just don't mar things up. They're really great. So again, it's just kind of a struggle, and there's no instruction manual for these kind of things. I think somebody mentioned that in the comments to me the other day. There's nobody that tells you how to do any of this if you've never done it before. There's only one way to figure it out, really, and that is to just get in there and start doing something. And if you're somewhat mechanically inclined, you can figure these things out. You just got to figure out what order things need to go in, and here I am figuring it out. But watch this thing. It's a hand pincher. It wants to get you. So now the job of getting all of the parts free of this insane amount of grease that's been on pretty much everything we've removed from the lathe thus far. Now there is a bearing there, and there's not many snap rings on this lathe, but the ones that are on it have been a bear to get out. This one was rusted in place, rusted into its groove. The holes were so corroded I couldn't get the pliers in there. I mean, it was difficult at best. Nowadays I'd probably use an arbor press rather than a brass hammer, but I didn't have one at the time. And look at that horrible, like, push-up popsicle of grease right there. I said, there's always room for Jell-O. My wife says it looks like fudge frosting. It didn't smell like either of those, believe me. But as we've seen multiple times before, the one thing that the previous owners of this lathe took seriously was lubrication. They greased anything and everything. And if previous owners of a machine have to have a flaw over lubrication, is not a bad one. Is at least it can, save parts of the lathe. So here I've got a bearing puller. I'm going to try to get this bearing off of the shaft. It's oftentimes the safest way to remove a bearing is with one of these, and you're just kind of using the screw pressure and those little clamps that go around and under the bearing cinch down on the shaft and pull on the inner race of that bearing, so you don't end up wrecking the ball bearing by pulling on the outer race. And so you just use a wrench and tighten it down, and off she comes. All right, so now I'm going to get the base spun around because the motor can't come out at the front door. It is going to have to come out the back. And so we're just going to lift it up with the engine hoist and spin it around. That base is pretty heavy, even though it's got nothing in it. First of all, the motor itself is, a couple 100 pounds, I would think. And the base itself is, in most spots, at least an inch thick cast iron. So it's large. It's heavy. It's large and heavy and awkward and weirdly shaped to boot. So here I am removing the stud that belt adjustment contraption was on, and it's completely blind. I can't see what I'm doing. I've got the camera down underneath there, but I literally can't see anything, which is what takes so long to get this thing off. So once that finally comes off, we're able to hook a clevis and a strap to the motor, hook that up to the engine hoist, and out she comes. As much as I dislike an engine hoist, I'll admit that without it, most of this would have been impossible. You just got to have something hydraulic or a chain fall or something like that can let you lift these things, because unless you're, He-Man, you can't lift these things by yourself. All right, so there it comes out, and we're going to check out the bearings and make sure everything's okay in a future episode. So that's that. The last bits are out of the base of the lathe. The motor's out, all the various pulleys and stuff are out, and it is clean-ish. It's not ready for paint, but that'll come soon, because you guys are now caught up to where this project stands, and you're going to be with it in real time now. So the next lathe video we put out, it'll be what we're currently working on. All of you that have stuck with us for the beginning of this project and where we have shown you what we've been working on for the last year or so, we greatly appreciate everybody that's liked and commented, and especially all you guys that have subscribed to us. We can't thank you enough. And next week, we're going to have something a little special for you. It's going to be a new machine day. So we'll see you then. Okay, take 412. All right, take 413. This is the one. Let's do that again because this whole intro sucks ass.